It was a peaceful Tuesday morning when the world changed forever. The sky over New York City suddenly filled with strange, dark shapes. At first, people thought it was just an unusual cloud formation. But as the shapes got closer, everyone realized the truth. Alien spaceships were entering Earth's atmosphere. Within minutes, similar reports came in from all over the globe. London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing. Every major city was witnessing the same terrifying sight. The aliens known as the HFYians had arrived, and they weren't here to make friends. Sarah Chen, a young scientist working at a research lab in San Francisco, watched in shock as the first alien ship appeared over the Golden Gate Bridge. She quickly called her boss, Dr. James Harper. "Dr. Harper, are you seeing this?" Sarah's voice shook as she spoke. "I am, Sarah. Get to the lab immediately. We need to analyze what's happening," Dr. Harper replied, his usual calm voice now filled with urgency. As Sarah rushed to her car, the first attacks began. A bright beam of energy shot out from the alien ship, slicing through the top of the Transamerica Pyramid building like it was made of butter. Screams filled the air as people ran for cover. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., General Mike Thompson burst into the Oval Office. The president looked up, his face pale with worry. "Mr. President, we're under attack. These aliens, they're hitting every major city around the world," General Thompson reported. The president stood up, his jaw set firmly. "General, I want our best defenses up now. And get me on a secure line with other world leaders. We need to coordinate our response." As the hours passed, the situation grew more desperate. The alien weapons were far more advanced than anything on Earth. Cities burned, and millions of people fled their homes. But humanity wasn't giving up without a fight. In London, Royal Air Force pilot Emma Watson climbed into her fighter jet. Her hands were steady as she started the engine, even though fear gripped her heart. "This is Hawk 1, ready for takeoff," she radioed. "Godspeed, Hawk 1, came the response. "Show those aliens what Earth is made of." Emma's jet screamed into the sky, joined by dozens of others. They engaged the alien ships in a fierce dogfight over the English Channel. To everyone's surprise, some of the human pilots managed to damage the alien craft. Back in New York, a group of civilians led by ex-Marine John Martinez organized a rescue operation. They helped people trapped in collapsed buildings and guided them to safety. "Stay calm and stick together," John shouted over the chaos. "We'll get through this." His words gave hope to the scared survivors. Humanity's spirit was battered but not broken. In a secret underground facility in the Nevada desert, Dr. Ava Robinson made a startling discovery. She had been studying strange artifacts found buried in the Earth years ago. Now, as she ran tests on them, they began to glow and hum. "Oh my God," she whispered, realizing these ancient objects might be humanity's best hope against the invaders. As the first day of the invasion came to an end, the world was in shock. Major cities lay in ruins, millions were dead or missing, and the aliens showed no signs of stopping. But something unexpected was happening too. Old enemies were putting aside their differences. Countries that had been at odds for decades now worked together, sharing resources and information. In a bunker deep beneath the Pentagon, world leaders gathered for an emergency video conference. The U.S. President addressed them all. "Ladies and gentlemen, today we face the greatest threat in human history, but I've seen something today that gives me hope. I've seen the people of Earth coming together, showing incredible bravery and compassion. We may be outgunned, but we are not outmatched in spirit. Together, we will find a way to defeat these invaders and reclaim our world." As night fell, the aliens paused their attack, perhaps thinking they had already won. But in labs, military bases, and secret facilities around the world, humans worked tirelessly. They studied the alien technology, planned counterattacks, and prepared for the fight of their lives. The invasion had begun, but Earth's retaliation was just getting started. The Cthorians had no idea what they had awakened. Humanity was down, but far from out. The real battle was about to begin. As the sun rose on the second day of the alien invasion, the world looked very different. Smoke rose from the ruins of once great cities, but amidst the destruction, something remarkable was happening. Humanity was coming together like never before. In New York, the United Nations building had been destroyed, but in its place, a makeshift command center had been set up in Central Park. Leaders from around the world gathered there, putting aside old rivalries to face the common threat. "We must form a united front," said the Chinese president, addressing the emergency meeting. "Our differences mean nothing in the face of extinction." The U.S. president nodded in agreement. "I propose we create a global defense force. We'll call it the Earth Defense Force, or EDF." The idea was met with unanimous approval. For the first time in history, the nations of Earth agreed to combine their military forces under a single command. Meanwhile, in a secret lab beneath the ruins of London, Dr. Emma Watson, no relation to the RAF pilot, worked tirelessly to understand the alien technology. She had managed to salvage pieces of a downed Xorlian ship. "This material," she muttered, examining a strange, shimmering metal. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen." Just then, her colleague, Dr. Rajesh Patel, burst into the lab. "Emma, you won't believe this. We've intercepted some of the aliens' communications." Emma's eyes widened. "Can we understand them?" Rajesh nodded excitedly. "Our AI is translating them now. It seems they call themselves the Xorlians. And Emma, they didn't expect us to fight back so hard. We've surprised them." This news spread quickly, boosting morale around the world. Humanity might be outgunned, but they weren't going down without a fight. In Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, a group of hackers led by Maria Souza had been working non-stop since the invasion began. They had managed to crack into the Xorlian communication network. "We can't understand everything," Maria explained to the EDF commanders via video call, "but we can disrupt their signals. It's not much, but it's something." The EDF leaders were impressed. "It's more than something," the French general said. "It could give us a crucial advantage." As governments and militaries organized their response, ordinary people around the world were doing their part too. In Mumbai, India, taxi driver Arjun Patel turned his vehicle into an ambulance, ferrying injured people to makeshift hospitals. "We're all in this together," Arjun said as he helped an elderly woman out of his taxi. "Human or alien, we're all just trying to survive." In Cape Town, South Africa, Chef Zolan Ndlovu organized a massive cooking operation to feed refugees. "Food brings people together," she said, stirring a huge pot of stew. "And right now, we need all the togetherness we can get." Back in the Nevada desert, Dr. Ava Robinson had made a breakthrough with the ancient artifacts. She discovered that they formed a kind of communications device, possibly left behind by a different alien race long ago. "If we can activate this," she explained to her team, "we might be able to call for help. There could be other civilizations out there willing to stand with us against the Xorlians." As night fell on the second day, the Xorlians launched another wave of attacks. But this time, Earth was more prepared. The newly formed EDF coordinated a global counterattack. Fighter jets from a dozen nations flew side by side. On the ground, tanks bearing the flags of former enemies now fought together. And in orbit, the International Space Station, hastily converted into a battle station, fired experimental weapons at the alien ships. The battle was fierce, and the losses were heavy on both sides. But for the first time since the invasion began, the aliens were pushed back in several locations. As dawn broke on the third day, there was a new feeling in the air. It wasn't quite hope. The situation was still too dire for that. But it was something close, a grim determination, a refusal to give up. In the Central Park Command Center, the world leaders received reports of the night's battles. There were nods of approval and even a few smiles. "We've shown them what humanity can do when we stand together," the Japanese Prime Minister said. The U.S. president stood up, looking at each of his fellow leaders in turn. "This is just the beginning," he said. "We have a long way to go, but together we will reclaim our world. And when we do, we'll be stronger than ever before." As he spoke, millions around the world watched on whatever screens were still working. In the face of an overwhelming alien threat, humanity had united. The fight for Earth had truly begun. As the fifth day of the alien invasion dawned, Earth's situation remained dire. The Orleans had established strongholds in major cities worldwide, but humanity's united front was holding, and a glimmer of hope was about to emerge from an unexpected source. In the heart of the Amazon rainforest, a team of EDF scientists and soldiers hacked their way through dense vegetation. They were following coordinates provided by Dr. Ava Robinson, based on her research into the ancient artifacts. "It should be just ahead," said Dr. Carlos Mendoza, wiping sweat from his brow. He held a device that beeped faster as they approached their goal. Suddenly, the team broke into a clearing. In the center stood a structure unlike anything they'd ever seen. It was a pyramid, but made of a material that shimmered and seemed to shift colors. "Incredible," whispered Sergeant Sarah Chen, who had been reassigned from her lab in San Francisco to this mission. "It looks almost alive." As they approached the pyramid, strange symbols on its surface began to glow. Dr. Mendoza's eyes widened. These matched the symbols on the artifacts Dr. Robinson found. Meanwhile, in orbit above Earth, the converted International Space Station was under heavy attack. Commander Yuki Tanaka gritted her teeth as another blast rocked the station. "Shields at 15%, reported her second-in-command, Major Tom Reynolds. "We can't take much more of this, Commander." Yuki nodded grimly. "Send out the distress call to Earth. Tell them it's been an honor." Back in the Amazon, the team had managed to enter the pyramid. Inside, they found a vast chamber filled with technology far beyond human understanding. "Look at this," Sergeant Chen called out, pointing to what appeared to be a control panel. As she approached it, the panel lit up, responding to her presence. Dr. Mendoza rushed over, his eyes scanning the alien text that appeared. Thanks to their work deciphering the artifacts, he could understand some of it. This is incredible," he said, his voice filled with awe. "If I'm reading this correctly, this is some kind of planetary defense system. It was left here by another alien race, long ago. Can we use it?" Sergeant Chen asked urgently. Dr. Mendoza nodded slowly. "I think so. But we'll need help." He quickly established a video link with Dr. Robinson in Nevada. Together, they worked to understand the ancient technology. As they worked, the battle raged on around the world. In Tokyo, giant Xorlian walkers stomped through the streets, their energy weapons laying waste to entire blocks. But Japanese mecha suits, hastily adapted with reverse-engineered alien tech, fought back bravely. In Moscow, Russian and Chinese forces fought side by side, their combined might managing to push back a Xorlian assault on the Kremlin. And in space, the ISS was on its last legs. Commander Tanaka had ordered most of the crew to the escape pods. She and Major Reynolds stayed behind, determined to buy Earth as much time as they could. Just as all seemed lost, Dr. Mendoza made a breakthrough. "I've got it," he shouted. "Sergeant, place your hand here." Sergeant Chen did as instructed. The entire pyramid hummed to life, energy coursing through its structure. Outside, the team watched in awe as a beam of light shot from the top of the pyramid into the sky. Similar beams appeared from hidden structures all around the globe, converging high above the Earth. In space, Commander Tanaka and Major Reynolds stared in disbelief. A shimmering energy field was forming around the entire planet. "What the hell is that?" Reynolds asked. Before Tanaka could respond, a Xorlian blast hit the station. But instead of destroying it, the energy dissipated harmlessly against the new planetary shield. On the Xorlian mothership, Supreme Commander Zixnar watched in shock as his fleet's weapons became useless. "Impossible," he hissed. "How could these primitives have such technology?" Back on Earth, Cheers erupted from every corner of the globe as people realized what had happened. For the first time since the invasion began, they were safe from orbital bombardment. In the EDF headquarters, now relocated to a bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, the mood was cautiously optimistic. "This is the turning point we've been waiting for," the U.S. president said to his fellow world leaders. "Now we can focus on taking back our planet." The Chinese president nodded in agreement. "But we must act fast. The Corleans will not give up easily." As the meeting continued, plans were made for a global counteroffensive. With the shield protecting them from space-based attacks, humanity could now bring its full might against the Xorlian ground forces. The tide of the war was turning. Earth had unveiled its secret weapon, and the real battle for the planet was about to begin. 2 weeks had passed since the activation of Earth's planetary shield. The Xorlians, unable to bombard the planet from orbit, had focused their efforts on ground warfare. But humanity, protected from space-based attacks, had used this time wisely. In a secret facility beneath the Australian outback, Dr. Emma Watson stood before a gleaming spaceship. It was unlike anything humans had built before, a perfect blend of Earth and alien technology. "The Artemis is ready," she announced to the gathered EDF officials. "She's the first of our new fleet, capable of both atmospheric and deep space flight." General Mike Thompson nodded approvingly. "Excellent work, Doctor. How soon can we begin production on more?" "We've already started," Emma replied with a smile. "Factories around the world are working round the clock. We'll have a dozen more within a month." Meanwhile, in orbit, the repaired and upgraded International Space Station had become humanity's first true space fortress. Commander Yuki Tanaka looked out at the stars, her eyes fixed on the Xorlian fleet just beyond the shield's range. "Status report," she ordered. Major Tom Reynolds, now her official second-in-command, responded promptly. "All systems green, Commander. The new weapons are online, and the shields are at full power." Yuki allowed herself a small smile. "Good. It's time we took the fight to them." Back on Earth, in the EDF headquarters, world leaders gathered for a crucial meeting. The U.S. president stood at the head of the table, his face grim but determined. "Today," he began, "we launch Operation Thunderbolt. Our new ships will break through the shield at predetermined points. Their mission: to engage the Xorlian fleet and destroy their command ships." The Russian president leaned forward. "And what of the Xorlian forces still on Earth?" The Chinese president answered, "We'll coordinate a global ground offensive. While they're distracted by our space attack, we'll hit every Xorlian stronghold simultaneously." As the leaders finalized their plans, preparations were underway around the world. In New Delhi, Indian engineers put the finishing touches on their mech suits, now enhanced with shield technology. In Rio de Janeiro, Maria Souza and her team of hackers prepared to launch a cyber attack on Xorlian communications. In London, RAF pilot Emma Watson, no relation to the scientist, climbed into the cockpit of her new spacecraft. She took a deep breath, remembering the dogfights over the English Channel that seemed so long ago now. "Hawk 1, ready for launch," she reported. "Godspeed, Hawk 1, came the response. "Show those aliens what Earth can really do." As dawn broke around the world, Operation Thunderbolt began. The planetary shield opened at strategic points, allowing Earth's new fleet to stream into space. The Xorlians, caught off guard by this sudden attack, scrambled to respond. In Australia, Dr. Emma Watson watched nervously as the Artemis took off on its maiden voyage. "Come on, baby," she whispered. "Show them what you can do." The space battle was fierce and chaotic. Earth's ships, though fewer in number, were more agile and packed with surprises. Xorlian vessels exploded as they were hit with weapons they'd never encountered before. On the Xorlian mothership, Supreme Commander Zixnar watched in disbelief. "How?" he snarled. "How have they advanced so quickly?" His second-in-command had no answer, staring open-mouthed at the sight of a Xorlian dreadnought being taken down by a ship half its size. Back on Earth, The Ground War Rage. In the ruins of Paris, French resistance fighters emerged from the catacombs, armed with reverse-engineered Xorlian weapons. They caught the alien garrison completely by surprise. In Tokyo, giant mecha suits battled Xorlian walkers amid the skyscrapers. The streets shook with each mighty blow exchanged. And in New York, John Martinez led a group of civilians turned soldiers in an assault on the alien headquarters in what was once the Empire State Building. They fought floor by floor, driven by the desire to reclaim their home. As the battle raged on Earth and in space, humanity's spirit soared. For the first time since the invasion, victory seemed possible. The Xorlians, who had arrived so confidently, now found themselves on the defensive. In the depths of space, aboard the Artemis, Dr. Emma Watson worked feverishly. She had discovered a weakness in the Xorlian ship's energy shields. If exploited, it could turn the tide of the entire war. All ships, she broadcast, target the following frequencies. Hit them hard, and don't let up. As Earth's fleet adjusted their weapons, a new wave of explosions lit up the sky. Xorlian ships began to fall, their mighty shields failing under the precise assault. The counterattack was working. Humanity had taken the fight to space, and they were winning. The Xorlians were about to learn a harsh lesson. Never underestimate the human spirit. As the battle for Earth raged on, news of humanity's unexpected resistance began to spread across the galaxy. The Xorlians, once seen as an unstoppable force, were being pushed back by a species they had dismissed as primitive. On the distant planet Xyrox, members of the Galactic Council gathered for an emergency meeting. Representatives from 100 different alien races sat in a vast, domed chamber, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. "This is unprecedented," declared Kelthor, the serpentine representative of the Slick Confederation. "No species has ever repelled a Xorlian invasion before." Aura, the luminous being representing the energy-based Luminians, pulsed with excitement. "Perhaps we have underestimated these humans. Their adaptability is remarkable." As the council debated, more reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Xorlian outposts were calling for reinforcements. Their fleets, spread thin across conquered worlds, were being recalled to deal with the Earth threat. Back on Earth, the tide of the war was turning. In the skies above Moscow, Squadron Leader Alexei Volkov led a team of pilots in Earth's new space fighters. They darted between Xorlian cruisers, their weapons finding weak spots with unerring accuracy. For Earth, Alexei shouted as another alien ship exploded in a brilliant fireball. On the ground, the scene was just as intense. In the jungles of Vietnam, a joint force of Vietnamese and Chinese soldiers used guerrilla tactics to overwhelm a Xorlian base. Their weapons, a mix of traditional arms and reverse-engineered alien tech, proved devastatingly effective. Meanwhile, in a secret bunker beneath Geneva, Dr. Marie Durand made a breakthrough that would change the course of the war. She had been studying the ancient alien technology found in the Amazon pyramid. "It's not just a shield generator," she explained to the gathered EDF officials. "It's a communications array. We can use it to broadcast a message across the galaxy." The news spread quickly through Earth's leadership. This was an opportunity to reach out to other civilizations, to call for help or warn others about the Xorlian threat. In orbit, aboard the space station New Hope, formerly the ISS, Commander Yuki Tanaka received the transmission about Dr. Durand's discovery. She turned to Major Tom Reynolds, her eyes shining with excitement. "Tom, we might not be alone in this fight after all," she said. As Earth prepared its message to the stars, the Xorlians were facing a crisis. Supreme Commander Zixnar paced the bridge of his flagship, his normally blue skin turned a pale purple with stress. "How?" he roared at his subordinates. "How have these humans done this? We've conquered 1,000 worlds, and this backwater planet resists us." His second-in-command, Vexlar, spoke hesitantly. "Sir, there are rumors spreading through the fleet. Some are saying the humans have the blessing of the ancients. Zixnar's eyes narrowed. The ancients were a mythical race, said to have seeded life throughout the galaxy eons ago. Superstitious nonsense, he snarled, but doubt had begun to creep into his mind. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, the debate had reached a fever pitch. Some races argued for immediate intervention to help Earth, while others cautioned against interfering in what they saw as a local conflict. Suddenly, a new hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a human face, Dr. Marie Durand, broadcasting from Earth. "Greetings, citizens of the galaxy," she began, her voice translated into 100 alien languages. "We are the humans of Earth. We have been invaded by the Xorlians, but we fight on. We have discovered technology left by those you call the ancients, and we use it now to reach out to you." The council chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. The ancients were real, and they had chosen Earth. As Marie continued her message, detailing Earth's struggle and their discoveries, the mood in the chamber shifted. More and more representatives began to side with those calling for intervention. Across the galaxy, other civilizations watched the broadcast with growing interest. Some, long oppressed by Xorlian rule, saw a glimmer of hope. Others, who had stayed neutral out of fear, began to reconsider their stance. On a dozen worlds, secret resistance movements sprang into action, inspired by Earth's example. The Xorlian Empire, which had seemed unassailable for centuries, suddenly found itself facing challenges on multiple fronts. As Marie's message concluded, she ended with a simple but powerful statement. "We are humanity. We stand against tyranny, and we invite you to stand with us." The galactic shockwaves of Earth's resistance were only beginning. The war for Earth had become something much bigger, a potential turning point in the history of the galaxy itself. 3 months had passed since Earth's message to the galaxy. The war had reached a critical point. Earth's forces, bolstered by their newfound allies, had pushed the Xorlians back. But the alien empire wasn't defeated yet. In the skies above New York, a massive space battle raged. Earth's fleet, now joined by ships from a dozen alien races, clashed with the remaining Xorlian armada. Beams of energy crisscrossed the night sky, lighting up the city below. On the ground, Sarah Chen, now a colonel, led a mixed group of human and alien soldiers through the ruins of Manhattan. They were closing in on the Xorlians' main Earth base. "Remember," Sarah shouted over the sound of nearby explosions, "we're fighting for more than just Earth now. We're fighting for freedom across the galaxy." Her words were met with a chorus of cheers in various alien languages. Meanwhile, in orbit, aboard the Earth flagship Humanity's Hope, Admiral Yuki Tanaka coordinated the space battle. Beside her stood Zorkal, a towering 4-armed alien from the Andromedian Alliance. "The Xorlians are pulling back," Zorkal observed, his deep voice rumbling. "They're gathering around their mothership." Yuki nodded grimly. "They're preparing for one last, desperate attack. Alert all ships. This is it." As the battle reached its climax, an unexpected transmission came through. It was from the Galactic Council. In the EDF headquarters beneath the Rocky Mountains, world leaders gathered to hear the message. The holographic image of Kelthor, the slick representative, appeared before them. "People of Earth," Kelthor began, his forked tongue flicking nervously, "the Galactic Council has reached a decision. We're sending a delegation to your world. We wish to negotiate." The room erupted in surprised murmurs. The Chinese president stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. "Negotiate? Now, when we're on the brink of victory?" The U.S. president held up a hand for silence. "We'll hear them out," he said firmly. "But we won't stop fighting. Not until every last Xorlian has left our world." As news of the Council's decision spread, reactions varied across Earth and among their alien allies. Some saw it as a chance for peace, others as a trick by the Xorlians to buy time. In London, Dr. Emma Watson worked furiously in her lab. She had been studying the ancient alien technology, and she was close to a breakthrough that could change everything. "Just a little more time," she muttered, her eyes fixed on complex equations floating in holographic displays around her. Back in New York, Colonel Chen and her team had fought their way to the heart of the Thorlian base. They found themselves face to face with Supreme Commander Zixnar himself. The alien leader, his blue skin now pale and sickly, raised his hands in surrender. "Enough," he said, his voice filled with defeat. "Enough death. I yield." Sarah kept her weapon trained on him, hardly daring to believe it. "You're surrendering." Zixnar nodded slowly. "You humans, you've shown us something we've forgotten. The power of unity, of fighting for something greater than ourselves. I was wrong about your species." As this scene unfolded, the Galactic Council delegation arrived in Earth's orbit. Their ship, a massive gleaming vessel that dwarfed even the Xorlian mothership, descended towards the planet. World leaders gathered in what remained of the United Nations building in Geneva to meet the delegation. The air was tense, filled with a mixture of hope and suspicion. The doors opened, and in walked beings from a dozen different alien races. At their head was Aura, the Luminian representative, glowing softly in the dim room. "People of Earth," Aura began, her voice melodious and soothing, "we come not as conquerors, but as equals. Your bravery, your unity in the face of overwhelming odds, has shown us that we were wrong to dismiss you as a primitive species." The U.S. President stepped forward. "We appreciate your words," he said cautiously, "but what exactly are you proposing?" Aura's glow brightened. "We propose that Earth be given a seat on the Galactic Council. Your planet would be recognized as a sovereign world, protected by galactic law. And the Xorlians, they will face justice for their crimes." The room fell silent as the implications of this offer sank in. Earth, a backwater planet just months ago, was being offered a place among the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. But before anyone could respond, Dr. Emma Watson burst into the room, her eyes wild with excitement. "Wait," she shouted. "There's something you all need to see. I've unlocked the final secrets of the ancient technology, and it's going to change everything." As all eyes turned to Emma, the fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. The final stand had led not just to victory, but to a new beginning for humanity. All eyes were on Dr. Emma Watson as she stood before the gathered world leaders and alien delegates in Geneva. The room was thick with tension and anticipation. "The ancient technology," Emma began, her voice steady despite her excitement. "It's not just a weapon or a shield. It's a key to the stars themselves." She activated a holographic display, showing a complex network of swirling energy patterns. "These are wormholes," she explained. "The ancients created a vast network of them, connecting distant parts of the galaxy. And Earth is at the center of it all." The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. Aura, the Luminian representative, glowed brighter in astonishment. "Impossible," she whispered. "The ancients' home world. It was Earth all along." Emma nodded. "It seems so. And now we have the power to reactivate this network, to connect the galaxy in ways not seen for millions of years." The implications were staggering. Earth, once thought to be a backwater planet, was suddenly the most important world in the galaxy. The U.S. President turned to Aura, a hint of a smile on his face. "I believe this changes our negotiations somewhat." In orbit, aboard humanity's hope, Admiral Yuki Tanaka received the news with a mix of awe and pride. She turned to her alien ally, Zorcal. "Looks like we got a lot of work ahead of us," she said. Zorcal nodded, all four of his arms crossed. "Indeed. But together, I believe we can achieve great things." Back on Earth, the news spread rapidly. In Times Square, New York, huge crowds gathered to watch the live broadcast from Geneva. When the announcement came that Earth would not only join the Galactic Council, but lead a new era of galactic exploration and cooperation, The cheers were deafening. In a refugee camp outside of Cairo, John Martinez, the ex-Marine turned resistance leader, watched the broadcast on a battered old TV. Tears streamed down his face as he hugged his comrades. "We did it," he said softly. "We really did it." Meanwhile, in a holding cell deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Supreme Commander Zixnar of the Corleans awaited his fate. When he heard the news about Earth's true significance, he laughed bitterly. "We tried to conquer the very heart of the galaxy," he mused to himself. "How foolish we were." As the days passed, the world began to change rapidly. The Galactic Council established a permanent embassy in the newly rebuilt United Nations headquarters. Alien tourists flocked to Earth, eager to see the home of the species that had defeated the Corleans. In universities around the world, classes in xenobiology, alien languages, and interstellar politics became the most popular courses. The first human students prepared to study abroad, on planets light years from Earth. Dr. Emma Watson led a team of human and alien scientists in further studying and developing the ancient technology. Their first major project, reactivating the wormhole network to allow instant travel across the galaxy. Colonel Sarah Chen, hailed as a war hero, was appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council. As she prepared for her new role, she couldn't help but marvel at how far humanity had come in such a short time. From fighting for our survival to leading the galaxy, she mused during her first council meeting. Who would have thought? A year after the war's end, Earth hosted the first Galactic Peace Summit. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered in the Grand Hall of the new United Galactic headquarters in Geneva. The U.S. President, now serving as Earth's representative, stood to address the assembly. "Friends, allies, fellow citizens of the galaxy," he began, his voice carrying across the diverse crowd. "A year ago, we faced extinction. Today, we stand at the dawn of a new era. An era of peace, of exploration, of unity." He paused, looking out at the sea of alien faces, some humanoid, some utterly bizarre, but all united in this moment. The war taught us that we are stronger together than apart. That diversity is not something to fear, but to celebrate. As we reactivate the ancient network, we do so not for the benefit of any one species, but for all. As he spoke, Dr. Emma Watson and her team in London activated the first wormhole. A shimmering portal opened in the sky above Geneva, a gateway to a distant star system. The assembled delegates gasped in wonder. The president's voice swelled with emotion. "Today, we take our first step into a larger universe. Not as conquerors, but as explorers. Not in war, but in peace. The galaxy once feared the name of Earth. Now let it stand for hope, for progress, for unity." As cheers filled the hall, humans and aliens alike stood together, ready to face the future. Earth had not only survived its trial by fire, but emerged as a beacon of hope for the entire galaxy. The era of humanity's isolation was over. The stars, at last, were within reach.